changes that you've made. I really welcome them, and it's moving on in terms of where technology is going. And this research-based approach, I think, works very, very well with customers, particularly if you get the right strategy in the beginning and the right subject matter that will pique their interest. And it gives a lot more independence around Mindtree and the company that you're working with. Be able to ask questions, gain huge insight from these customers that then enable you to have meaningful meetings the first time you engage. Because these companies have been very happy to share information, which sometimes is quite sensitive, that gives a big clue about their priorities and also the direction that they're heading in. So it really just cuts the sales cycle down, A, in terms of fixing meetings, and B, the content in terms of when you get there, you're able to go straight into a relevant discussion rather than doing all of that research yourself in the first meeting.
So how do you find when you go and meet the prospect, the potential new customer buyer for the first time? Do you feel it's a little bit different because they've kind of been through this experience of they've been interviewed on a subject of interest, and as a result of that they've almost warmed to you already?
For sure, it's very much the desired state around having a business conversation, and they're already interested because you've built that rapport through asking them about their opinions, and they're already feeling like they've been listened to. They're much more receptive to questions that you ask, and providing you get the positioning right, because in the beginning we were working with you about how you go from the independent research that you do to a sales conversation with the company that you're engaging with.
Yes.
And that there needs to be a lot of thought that's gone into that, so that there's no jerky or sudden movements in terms of the ending of the conversation that you had and the start of the sales conversation. And I suspect that if that isn't approached from a senior level, I suspect that a sales guy just going in there, I think without coaching and without being bought into through the company, I think there's a challenge there in terms of making a smooth transition from the work that you guys do and also progressing that as an opportunity.
It's the subtle nuance, isn't it? Moving from what is ultimately the context of an interview to that initial first conversation where it is the buyer seller, if you like, and the sales meeting. And I think that is really kind of where the depth of, if you like, the intellectual side of what's being discussed, the theme, the questions that are being asked, the answers that are being given. It's absolutely key that the salesperson going in for that first meeting has taken the time, right, to listen to the full recording, to do their research, and it's all there now. So it's really not difficult at all.
It gives you very useful collateral in terms of your overall strategy with that customer. Be able to also independently from you guys progress that strategy. It's huge insight.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's a partnership between you and us, which is the best way of working together, because it has to be, you do your bit and then we need to do ours to convert that business.
And just sort of going back to kind of the old process that we used to follow compared to the process that we do now, if you sort of look also in the sort of the wider, the way that kind of the buyers are changing and marketings are changing, what do you feel is the kind of the real driving force as to why this is working right now?
I think
as a strategy,
I think it's the smartness of it, because if you then take that back to technology, if you look at the education that users have had around the progression of technology and the way the market's going, everybody has to work faster and smarter in terms of the right outcomes. So the old days where you would give people a leg up around traditional telesales, and I know that what you did was a lot more than that, but it's a whole different intelligence in terms of the environment now around, what can be automated, what people are expecting from a personalization point of view, even through their engagement with flat technology. So, for example, Amazon. My engagement with Amazon, whilst there's absolutely no person involved, I feel like they're personalizing that relationship.
Yeah.
And I think what you guys bring is something extra now, that enables you to be one step ahead around that personalization. And that's the expectation. Everyone's become smarter, everyone's become more educated, and it's moving much more to a marketing-based sale, as opposed to the old-fashioned door-knocking type of sale. And this is something that I think companies really need to wake up to. And doing the legwork all yourself, there's so much is dependent on the skill of your sales guys to be able to get this whole process. And what you're doing is you're automating some of that process to be able to generate opportunity much faster, to get those meetings that you've got for us, to the stage you've got with the contacts that you've got, would have taken us a whole year to do what you managed to do in a quarter. And I think that's the difference. It's accelerating that whole process.
And how about this kind of, because I talk about sort of two reasons why people take interviews. And the first is, they're curious, they want to learn more about the subject. They're curious as to their peer group, what their peer group are saying. And the other is that, as LinkedIn has evolved, personal branding is becoming more and more important for professionals. What's your kind of take on those two kind of reasons why people get involved in the interviews?
I think there are multiple reasons, and it depends on a person's motivation. If you look at the whole Instagram and other technologies, it's all about how much content you yourself generate, how much positioning you're doing out there, how much you're putting yourself out there. And that may be from a motivational point of view, it may be several different motivations. One could be just pure ego and status, which, if you're positioning yourself in new ways, even if you're not that way inclined, taking your approach where somebody is getting a voice and you're encouraging their voice and making that personal, it is raising those people's brands. And everybody needs to do that, whether they're that way inclined or not. And there's some people who find that easier than others, but this gives them an intellectual way of being able to get their name out there, and an opportunity for them to promote themselves, I think, whether or not they're that way inclined.
Because we see that as being a big shift, if you like, over the last 10 years. When we started working with LinkedIn, a lot of organizations were kind of, they didn't actually want their employees to have a LinkedIn account, really, back in the early days. And how it's changed now, how everyone is being encouraged to share and publish, and it's just been an absolute shift in the kind of whole perception of how employees engage outside in beyond the walls of their employer. So I just think, my opinion is that there's been such a macroeconomic shift in terms of kind of now, that as a result of that, this kind of model now is a really nice and it's market ready. Is the way I see it.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people now are measured on their external face, whether that's blogging or engaging in panels and attending events. And, something like this is an opportunity for those guys to count that towards their measurement. And it is becoming a lot more part of someone's balanced scorecard.